welcome to this episode of the International Classroom podcast, where we delve into the evolving and interconnected landscape of education. I'm Alex Gray, and it's a pleasure to have you here with us. Now, in this episode, I have the privilege of speaking with Tom Rogerson, an esteemed leader in the realm of education and a vanguard in integrating artificial intelligence within the school curriculum. Tom's leadership at the renowned Cottesmore School in the UK has not only set a precedent for AI events in education, but has also inspired a global dialogue on the creative and practical applications of AI in enhancing learning experiences. In our conversation, we uncover the genesis of Cottesmore's groundbreaking AI festival, explore the potential of AI in education, and discuss the importance of balancing tradition with innovation. Now, before we get on to the episode, I have some exciting news to share with you all. The International Classroom has teamed up with Smart Technologies, the trailblazers in educational innovation and global learning solutions. Now, we've always been passionate about discovering the diverse and innovative ways education is approached globally. And Smart Technologies shares this vision, aiming to transform classrooms into dynamic spaces where learning goes beyond traditional methods. It's about active participation, exploration, and connecting people across the globe. And here's the thing. This partnership goes beyond technology. It's about empowering each one of you, our listeners. We'll be bringing you insights into how Smart is supporting education, offering practical tips for implementation, and featuring conversations with students and educators who are experiencing these changes firsthand. Now on to the episode. So, Tom, thank you ever so much for joining me on the International Classroom podcast today and giving up, I think, what is a valuable time for someone who leads kind of a very busy life with leading a renowned boarding school in the UK. From my side, I first came across you due to the Cottesmore AI festival, for want of a better word, that took place. So just to kick things off, before we kind of dive backwards and dive forwards with this, what brought about this idea of leading and hosting an AI event back in, was it September 2023 now?
Was. I think we were the first.
You were, yeah.
I think we were the first. I love somebody to say, well, actually, you weren't the first, but nobody's actually said that yet. So I think we were the first, but not a first prep school or a first, we were literally the first school, I think globally, to do anything like this. And so what on earth? How did we come about doing this? Well, I'm a creative. I think you're a creative as well. Yeah. I'm a creative, and I loved finding out about Wonder. Wonder was one of the first marketed apps to use AI, generative AI, and I loved it. I saw this thing, and it was advertised on Instagram or something, and I used it, and it was super cool. And so I was sort of hooked from that moment. And so everything sort of stemmed from that. In fact, in November, this was in October, I think, Wonder, but in November, my nephew came back, Max, and he said, there's a thing you can do. You can type in to this app, a bit like Google, but it's, and it can type stuff, or you can write your essays. And I just not interested in what you're saying right now. There's so much going on, and so he said, "Oh, okay." Went away. 2 days later, came back. Said, "Sorry, but you've got to pay attention to me now. There's this thing called ChatGPT," and so very early on, he is a brilliant boy. He's left Cottesmore now, but he was at Cottesmore. He was at my school, and he left me with this legacy of early adoption. And so he forced me into it, but he was so enthusiastic about it that it made me want to look into it. But as I say, Wonder came first, and then ChatGPT, and then if you're a creative, you sort of you see something new, and you quite quickly. If you've got that sort of brain, you can sort of figure out what could be done. What's the potential here? And the answer is huge potential. And it turned out I looked up on Google, and there were a few people who were interested in it. And you got Dan Fitzpatrick, who you know. You've got Darren Coxon, who you know, who's more of a classroom practitioner turned not. He's a classroom practitioner, and then he ran schools, and he did lots of different sort of things. Darren, so what I'm saying is he's quite well entrenched in the school sort of system, and so he's a really good person to go to. And he opened up our festival, which is our second thing. He didn't speak at the first one. He couldn't get over from Tunisia. That's where he was working. But we had Dan Fitzpatrick. We had Priya Lakhani. Do you know Priya from Century?
Yes.
Priya Lakhani is Cottesmore's digital patron. And so she was really sort of honoured to be able to have her as patron, but also to get her, she's so busy, get her to speak. We had a guy called Stefan Bouchard, who's really sort of an early adopter, but into debating in New York. And a few other people, and it was Sir Anthony Selden opened it, and it was just the most incredible show. Really, it was so exciting. People were coming in from worldwide. We were being beamed in from sort of Kuala Lumpur, and people were coming in on Zoom. And it was packed. The house was packed, and so clearly there was a excitement, and clearly there was an appetite for it. And so I thought that was it. Hey, we're done. This is obviously clearly very exciting, and the launch has happened, and now everybody can go and do their thing. And a few people, I think my brother, I think a few other people said, good, nice start. Yeah. You started quite nicely there. What are you going to do now with AI and the thing? And so obviously my first answer was, because that was quite, putting on an event's quite sort of a lot of pressure and stress, and the lunches and the people. And I said, I'm not doing anything. And then slowly, when people set the idea going in your mind, and then you go, oh God, I can't get it out of my mind that we now have to do something else. And so what I thought was that we'd do a practical masterclass festival. So 3 days, not only one day, but 3 solid days, which, and again, Sir Anthony Selden opened it, and then Darren Coxon did his bit on the Monday, and it was brilliant. But did you manage to tune in?
I did. Did
you tune in for the Darren Coxon bit where we created a school from scratch? Yeah, that was cool. And in fact, the children have, maybe we'll talk about it later, but the children subsequently did that exercise with our coder, with our ICT teacher, coding teacher, and they've an AI teacher, and they've done it. So they copied Darren's thing. And then a whole load of people. It was so cool because we had Dr. Philippa Hardman, who you may know. Do you know Dr. Philippa? Yeah. And she's really, really concerned with lots of things, and she's totally chilled. She's in fact, you two should do a podcast for sure, because she's like fully chilled, really cool person. But she did it with Binder Patel, and they together they did a thing on, and you might have been there. They did inequity in AI. So soon everything's going to be put behind a firewall. Nobody's going to be able to afford it, and only rich people are going to be able to do all this work very quickly. Anyway, so that was brilliant. And Dan Fitzpatrick wrapped the whole thing up amazingly. It was sort of, we still had a few, I have to say, stragglers who were not quite into it. What's this whole AI thing? What's the point of it? Still, people have been there for 2-3 days. And then he came in and just smashed it at the end. Bam, smashed the ball out of the park. And in between, do you know Phil Birchnell? He's more of a VR guy. Melissa McBride, who you can't have missed. Dr. Nick Jackson.
Yeah.
He joined. And Matthew Weems, who you definitely know. I think you've talked to him on this, haven't you?
I have, yeah. He's not far from me in the UK. Well, we're worlds apart, but in terms of being back in the UK, he's literally just up the road from where I grew up. He's a Stokey from Stoke-on-Trent, and I was just outside Burton-on-Trent. So all on the same sort of river.
I see. Maybe it's something in the water.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, more than likely.
But he's like the ultimate manifesto. I said Darren's involved with schools. Matthew's the ultimate. You do a podcast like this. The bell goes in the background. He says, "Sorry, I've got to go and teach 2B," and he's right inside it. He calls himself the AI guy for his school.
Yeah.
It's absolutely sort of So, and there were a couple of other people, but that was the festival. And then we did the sort of pinnacle was AI and SEN festival, and that was like incredible. I don't know if you looked into AI and SEN, but the potential, I'm not saying it's happening quite yet, but the potential is incredible. Maybe that's something we can talk about.
Yeah, definitely. I had a conversation with someone earlier actually, and it started probably about 10 days ago, and this person approached me and said, "Oh, you're speaking at this event." And I was like, "Really? What event?" And this is a typical Dubai thing, or from my side. And she's like, "No, you're down to speak at this event." And I said, tell me what it is. I was like, and I'm scratching my head. I'm like, no. And she went, "No, honestly, it's in May." And I'm like, "Oh, that's why." It's so far into the future. I really should know what's going on, but it's such a Dubai thing that, things here move at such a speed that kind of 3 weeks, 4 weeks of preparation. It's like, oh yeah, we got 4 weeks, we'll get it done. Alas, everything's sorted in that space of time. Same as when you want to move, you want to rent somewhere in Dubai. It's like, "Oh, I'm coming to look now. When do you want to move?" And a month, he goes, no, too long. It's like they want to move you as soon as quickly as possible. So, but this person approached me, and we were talking about this event is about inclusion and SEN and talking there about AI and technologies and the things that go with it, and starting now to see more about the use of AI and how it can be incorporated into inclusivity, adaptability, SEN. There's the scope for it in that field is vast, like you were saying.
So that's absolutely right. I don't know if this is the time podcast to talk about it, but I'd love to talk to you afterwards or during this podcast, whatever, because I'm going to the UNESCO headquarters to talk about inclusion and talk about special education needs and AI.
This is exactly
what you're talking about.
Yeah, this is exactly the right time to be talking about it, Tom. I mean,
oh right, cool.
Because it's interesting now. The UNESCO, the sort of the principles that we see, we see them a few times across in Dubai schools. You'll see them printed around. You see them starting to filter into classroom practice. But actually now, I think having a broader conversation about these characteristics and qualities and how we can utilize AI and incorporating them into it is, this is a perfect time to talk about it.
So the thing that we need to get over a bit is that it does work. It definitely does work, but there are GDPR issues and there are safeguarding issues about putting people's names into ChatGPT and other applications. So you've got to be super, super careful about that. But I think the best is yet to come with AI and creating bespoke resources for children and creating a bespoke almost bot for individuals. I think the best is yet to come for sure. Very exciting days, very exciting times with a company called Interactive Tutor. Do you know Alex Fay? Have you come across him?
I've heard of Interactive Tutor, yes.
Interactive Tutor. They've just changed their name, and I'll mention their name in a sec. But we've been working with him right from the start. He's really, really interesting talking about it because he actually really knows about AI. There's a lot of people who, like me, who are grabbing hold of this AI thing and saying this could be the answer to a big, big thing. Recruitment, retention, teacher recruitment and retention in the UK and the US and various other places in the world is problematic, really problematic. And people are not sticking around. And I just feel this could be, if some of the paperwork, some of the bureaucracy, some of the drudgery is taken away from teaching, I feel like this could be a real plus for teachers. And that's what Alex is working on. That's what I'm working on with Alex, with Interactive Tutor. If we look up the website, it's called Taisk, TAISK.com now. It was Interactive Tutor, it's now called Taisk. And he's really doing some amazing work. And we had both he and I, we talked. I had a meeting with the Department for Education to talk about what we've been doing with AI, because Bridie who is the deputy, Bridie Tour, who's the deputy digital lead at the DFE. A few of her team members came down to the show. I think it was it was the AI and SEM one, and and he's always an amazing wing person and also a front man, because he actually really genuinely knows what AI is. And a lot of us, me included, when you get past the capabilities of AI, generative AI, well, I don't have a clue how it works, because it's really deeply complicated. But as soon as you get him in the picture, it's like, oh, right, okay, this guy really knows what he's talking about. So we're working together on this teacher wellbeing piece, and that's I feel quite passionately about that. And one thing we were talking about today is getting state schools involved. And I have a group. We've created this group of about 6 state schools and Cottesmore, and we're going to invite them in. And they're going to be able to sort of, Cottesmore's going to facilitate the use of AI in those schools as well. And hopefully the Department for Education is going to come down, and they're going to witness it in action, really happening.
That'd be amazing. It'd be absolutely amazing.
And the excitement of the FE coming down, I think, will really push, for want of a better phrase, will really push the envelope. And we're going to, because we're doing things, we're having the top year creating bots, teacher bots. So creating their own teacher, so they choose the subject and they decide what it's going to, what it's going to look like and how it's going to talk and all this sort of stuff. So sort of creating their own teacher. Well, it's not a teacher; it's like an assistant or whatever you want to call it, non-anthropomorphized thing. And so, and these things are going on. So that's a big, quite exciting project going on at Cottesmore. But it's going to be quite exciting, really exciting.
Oh yeah. I mean, let's just pause on this point for a second, then, because you've mentioned your school a few times, and there might be people out there that maybe don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. Or have not come across Cottesmore's before. So in terms of Cottesmore School, mm-hmm. just give us a synopsis of the school that it is and some of the history that's behind it.
If you sort of look up the video of Cottesmore, you'll immediately get the vibe. Green grass, beautiful oak trees. We're in the countryside. It's a glorious thing. We've got a lake. We go paddle boarding. You may or may not have seen. I jump in for charity, fully clothed, and say it's the end of term, and also it's a very indoors. We've got wood paneling, and it looks traditional. It looks like a traditional prep school, and that's the vibe. That's the vibe people get, and it's a warm family atmosphere. You come in, and you're welcomed, cup of tea, and the children are all bombing around doing their thing. Looks like organized chaos. The usual good stuff. And so that's where we sit. A long time ago, I think it's okay to be that. Mm. In fact, it's wonderful. It's deeply wonderful to be that. But is it relevant? And to a lot of people, clearly, because Cottesmore's very successful. We are full. We've got waiting lists. So clearly some people think it's okay. It's an okay thing to be that. But I think it's not good enough to just be that. I think you have to be that and something else. And I posted an article that I'm trying to write a book, more difficult than one would expect, called The Art of And. Because I think you can be this traditional thing. I think you can be out there playing cricket and rugby and and netball and whatever, and doing the traditional things, having a debating, having a choir, having a debating team, having a chess team, doing all these traditional things, but also searching for the thing, searching for the new thing, searching for education 3.0. I think you can do this at the same time, and so that's the quest. That's the quest, to stick, to carry with us. And this is the analogy. I think, when we had our quick chat, this is the analogy that I told you. So the old world is here, and there's a bridge, and there's the new world, and we're going towards the new world. And it doesn't really care if you mind or not, because we're going there. Everybody's going there, and you're going across the bridge. You have to cross the bridge, and it's what you pack in your backpack that you take across the bridge that is so important. And yes, we've been right at the very, very tip, the sharpest part of the cutting edge with practice and doing stuff with AI. But I think even more important than that, or equally as important than that, is what are you bringing with you that's the good stuff from the old, from the old world? Because to say be an iconoclast and to smash things up from the past and just move on and just build everything new, I think is insensitive, and I think it's not okay. I think the past has thousands of years, hundreds and thousands of years of wonderful thought and leadership to take with you. And I think that's, it's what do you, and this is what, if I have a podcast, it'd probably be, what are you taking in your backpack, or across the bridge, or whatever it's going to be called. And I'd love to know what you would take, but I would take family, connection, human warmth, communication, physical sport, team sport, saying please and thank you, having lunch with each other, having great conversations, being kind. That's a starter. That's a list. That's a bullet point list, and they're all going in my backpack, among other things, obviously. Hopefully, beautiful architecture and fields and grass and trees across that bridge, and that's really, really important to us, because yes, we're at the cutting edge, and we've. That's the thing where we really went quite far ahead with our AI principle thing that we employed. You can't really say that because that's anthropomorphization again, but we employed an AI principal or AI principal head teacher, and so that was really, really sharp and out there. And we've had lots of really interesting conversations about that. But it's that's fine to be concerned about what's happening next. But I think even more importantly, we've got to bring it together with the good stuff from the past, the really good stuff from the past. You can't leave that stuff behind.
Completely agree. And I'm curious to know what you think is on the other side of the bridge.
I don't know. Okay, full disclosure, I don't know. But the thing is, it will be what we make it. That's the point. The thing that's on the other side of the bridge will look like the thing we are creating now. So that's why we're having this conversation, Alex. We're having this conversation so that we can create a really fantastic thing on the other side of the bridge. I think there's a lot of technology on the other side of the bridge. There's a lot of AI on the other side of the bridge. I think there are altered relationships, human relationships on the other side of the bridge. I don't want the relationships to be altered, but I think they are. I think the way people interact with each other, I think the way information gets chucked around, is going to be very interesting in the future. But I think the point is that we need to have this conversation that we're having now, so that we can be the architects. So we can make it look like the thing that we want. And this is part of part of my passion is making sure that people who are making this reality, this world, I'm not, I might not be the architect, and I might not be the coder who's coding. I might not be the brilliant mind, or the Altman, or the whoever, the Jeff Hinton. But surely we can ask or tell or suggest to the architects or suggest to the mathematicians who are creating this code to give it the feeling, or make sure that humanity is right at the core of the center of the kernel of anything that's happening, the buildings of the future, the architectural, the educational architecture of the future. Put humans and warmth and politeness and kindness right in the middle of it, rather than profit and bottom line. don't do that. Fine. You can have a bottom, a good bottom line. You can have a good profit margin if you want, but don't start with that. And I think this is what I feel like that my passion is, that I want to bring to the situation. And it's why I'm here. And it's why I'm talking to you. And it's why that we've been so interested in AI, is because we want to ensure that the thing that is created in the image of warmth and love and humanity, rather than digital fortresses and profit.
You mentioned obviously previously that you've obviously employed someone specifically in the role of AI and leading that. And you were probably one of the first schools that I ever saw to do that. The same as, I think, and I agree with you, were probably the first school that I saw run an AI event. And there's lots of others that have followed suit, and individuals who have taken that on board and said, we need to be doing this as well. And from a global perspective, do you think there's going to be more schools from now and in the future that are going to want to employ AI specialists, or redefine what their digital strategies and digital leaders do and know?
If you want a clear yes and no answer, then I will say I don't think it's necessary to employ somebody who is solely his job is AI. I think you could, and you would be absolutely the most cutting edge place on the planet as a school. Sorry. But I think what is happening is that, yes, you have these heads of AI, but actually they are heads of educational development, and they're, director of study tech, and they're joined to another, like ICT manager or ICT lead. And I don't think you need to just be, head of AI. I know we were the first to put the job spec out there and to be asking for that. But I think they can, especially in a school like Cottesmore. We're a school of 210. So actually, you need people to do multiple things. Sometimes I pick up the broom and I sweep outside if, like, I know somebody's away doing something else, or I'm talking to this person and then I'm doing something else. So we all have multiple jobs. So I think probably you can, and also you can get pretty up to scratch. You can get pretty, you can do quite well understanding and learning about AI pretty quickly, I'd say. I don't mean like in half an hour, but I think you can, if you're really into it and you're really excited by it, I think you can skip quite a lot and you can go to the exciting bits. And I think you would know more than quite a lot of people. So actually, I do think, but understanding how it works, that's a different matter, and that's what we were asking for. And that's deep stuff. But actually, I think just as long as you have an interested party like the head, like yourself, like Matthew Weems, I think as long as you have an interested party who's going to drive it, has a little bit of time, give them a bit of time, maybe take, headmistresses won't like me for this, but take a few lessons away from them and let them do a bit of research instead and let them drive some AI stuff. I don't think it would take much at the moment for the school to get really into it, because you must know this, Alex, that a third of the people are like, yay, AI. It might save us time or something, or it's going to do something cool for the children or whatever. A third of the people will go, well, yeah, I'll have a look if it lands on my plate. And a third of people will go, you know what, I've got a pen and I've got a board and I'm just going to draw on that board. Yeah. And it's like, just stop bothering me with this AI stuff. Yeah. And I'm very happy. I'm very accepting of all three modes, because I don't think it's essential. Actually, at the moment, I don't think it's essential to be into AI to survive. But I have a feeling that the people who are into AI will have a distinct advantage. So that's why I want to give that. That's my gift. I was trying to gift that to people.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I completely agree in that, like, I think everyone that speaks to me and who sees lots of work is like, oh, even someone said today, it's like, you're enthusiastic about AI. And it's like, well, yeah, I am. And at the same time, like, I delivered a task to my year 10 students today where they still have to go on and use a platform like Flipgrid which is you would look at it and go, God, that's so old now. It's like, well, yeah, it's fine. From a technological perspective, I think it's 4 or 5 years old, if not more. And it's like, because you still need to practice conversing and speaking about the subject. It's like, writing about it is one thing. And, we question the level of authenticity. But now, the ability to converse about something, you still need to practice those skills. And yes, we've just seen this idea of Sora coming out. We've seen HeyGen, we've seen deep fakes. We've got all these different things. You can clone your voice and do all these things. But the ability to hold a conversation about a topic or about something, or know how to speak to someone, actually at its core roots, as you said, about human connection, or human flourishing, or for want of a better word, social and emotional well-being. This idea that our generation of students coming through will be lonely because of all this technology, they won't have to leave the room. They would never have to leave their bedroom. They can just converse like this, or be an avatar of sorts. There's still going to be a requirement for deep connection. And I think it's important that, from an AI perspective, I probably use it in its most simplistic fashion. I want to ideate with it. It helps me to deliver better lessons for all of my students, and that I can say to it, I want a real world problem, or I want a project-based learning, I want scenarios, or I want UDL, or any of those things that I know pedagogically I know about. And yes, I'll check it over to make sure the content is all right.
Obviously, yeah.
But it just creates so much more within my lessons. And I find that therefore what I'm delivering in class is actually offers a more of a variety of opportunities for students to engage and excel and do. And so I'm delivering projects, or I'm doing tasks that off my own thought process I wouldn't do. And I'll give you an example. So last week in my year 8 class, which is always deemed my guinea pig class, it's not an exam group, I get to trial stuff with them. They know we get to trial stuff, and they're quite happy with that. We were doing about the nervous system, we're doing about organ systems in year 8. Nervous system comes along, it's like, right, I'm fine, I can do this without even thinking, do it on the board. But I'm like, where's the real world application? Because we all know that kids come in and go, it's fine, I'm learning this. When am I ever going to use it in the real world? When am I ever? And then we get that conversation a lot. And I pose that I use ChatGPT. And okay, I use other ones. I use Claude at times. I use Gemini. But I posed it to them and said, right, I need a real world task for students to appreciate how they can use this. And it came up with a task of, right, students are going to design a multi-sensory park. So just imagine that in Dubai, you are planning and designing a multi-sensory park for people who are visually impaired, who are sensory, different ones who struggle with hearing, and all these different things. And the kids loved it. It was a Friday morning, and they were like designing, they were researching. On A3, they were designing and creating, and some of them were drawing on the desks, and other ones were them like, right, I'll get this research off the board, off the internet. And had that just been me, like, I would never have come up with that. I would never have come up with that idea for a task to do. And I think sometimes with it, we look at these things that are coming out, like Sora with all the video stuff. And it's like, we don't need to get to that point yet. This is still a fantastic, resource and assistant for creating and designing meaningful and valuable lessons. And I'd probably go, actually, you know what, scrap the idea of a lesson. And someone I spoke to, Justin, he said, this is a really useful tool to help me design experiences and opportunities for my students. And that's what they get. And if you can use it and train educators to think of it in that way, just of a simplistic point of view, you can really create engaging and interesting and relevant experiences and opportunities for students. So I think for us, there's ones out there that are looking at it and are really, pushing the boundaries. But like you said, there's 5-10% of educators that know what to do. And for the other 30% who are happy with the whiteboard and the pen, yeah, that's great. If that works and the students are engaged and they're learning and they're happy, fantastic. It's for those, it's not going to be like, this revolutionary tool that completely gets educators to change it's like, no, teachers will always have choice, and teachers will always choose what they feel is best for them and best for educators. But it's one of those things where I say, I'd rather have it than not need it, than need it and not have it. And when we look at it like that, I think there's the scope, there's potential, like you've said throughout all this way, there's vast potential for it, but it's also understanding that some teachers will and some teachers won't. And I imagine from your side, and again, from a very traditional perspective in schools, and there's numerous different schools and educators out there probably listening and watching that are more traditional, how do you balance that? How do you balance this idea of retaining history and tradition with also this idea of wanting to drive innovation? How do you, as the leader of that school, marry and manage the idea of that, I might have, a different perspective from multiple different teachers that I have?
It is the ultimate question, but I will answer how, but it might be irrelevant because you have to marry the two. You have to be in the future, or you have to be preparing for the future, or you have to be doing all this stuff. And so it's sort of like the how happens. If you see what I mean, you're so driven, you're so being pushed, that actually the how it becomes relevant. But how do you marry the two? Conversations. It's got to be start again. I've said this already. It's got to start with conversations, and it's got to start with the narrative. How do you marry the two? People have got to, like, for example, our conferences and festivals. It's got to start with a really exciting and not enforced conversation, but it's got to start with everybody talking about it. Yeah, and so the compulsory part of this of the process for us was everybody had to go to the festival, because people were invited to the conference, the one-day conference, but they couldn't come because they were teaching English and they were teaching whatever and they're doing rugby. But this one, it was like, it's 3 days. You're coming to this. After that, after Dan Fitzpatrick said goodbye, well done, good luck. And had taught us, had wrapped everything up. I've never put a single piece of pressure on a single teacher to do anything with AI since. And so I think you do not force anybody to do it, because I think some people are a bit shruggy about it, or even worse, they're sort of actually nervous about it. And I think the worst thing would be to enforce AI in your school. I think it's got to be a choice. People are going to want to do it. So I think how, with sensitivity, with a really rich narrative. I think you've got to have a really rich narrative. Why are we looking at this AI stuff? Why is it important? And you've got to understand why. If you're the head, if you're the principal, you're the leader, you've got to understand why. It's not like, it's going to be pressed upon the school from afar. You've got to understand why. You need to know about AI. So you offer it up. It's like a load of cakes at Match Tea. Sorry to go for a traditional analogy. And you don't have to take the cake, but that's a good cake. Yeah. You're going to want to have a bit of that cake. And so that's it. So how, I think, with sensitivity and with honoring people's feelings. Because I think some people, I've talked to a lot of people, and I think people are a bit with high anxiety. Not a third, but a small amount of people have properly high anxiety about AI. I don't think Geoffrey Hinton, with his sort of talk of the end of the end of lives as we know it, helped with that. But I think you've just got to be sensitive to people. Sensitivity. But I think enthusiasm and conversation. That's how we've done it here. And a third of people haven't really sort of adopted it. A third of people are really running with it very, very fast down the wing, with another sort of outdoors analogy, with the rugby ball down the wing, very fast, about to score. In fact, they've scored many tries already. And the middle third are watching and waiting. And that's great, because they're seeing some really good leaders. Within my school, I have some great leaders, and we're very lucky to have this relationship with Alex Fahey, because he comes and he can't be there every day. He comes down to ensure that everything is going well, and he tells us gives us the next bit of the chapter. And helps us. So with expert help, if you can find it, and sensitively and with humanity and love.
No, I think that's it's a great piece of advice for people out there as well, in terms of just as a starting point or as a continuation of it. Once you get started, that continuation of find someone to have those conversations with, and once you start looking for them, there's not. I would always say there isn't many of us at the moment in terms of the percentage of people out there, educators, teachers. There's a small cluster, there's a small group of us educators that are having these conversations and driving it forward. But we're there to converse with. We're not, saying this is the be all and end all. It's the definite way to go. It's like we're open and eager to have these conversations, like you say, and look at both sides, because we know both sides of it. We know what it's like with, and we know what it's like without. And I think there it's just that case of, humanity, conversation, empathy, and understand where people are going from.
Big time. I think also, just a little bit conversely, going to say, I think you could skip it.
Yeah.
If you're that way inclined, I think you could skip it. And the reason why I'm saying that is because actually I'm not really that much of an EdTech fan. I quite like reading articles that say EdTech's, dumbing everybody down, and EdTech's, screens, you don't learn as much from a screen. I actually really quite enjoy those articles. Actually, I just happen to think AI is really, really different from the big EdTech splurge. I just think it's globe changing. It's humanity changing, whereas an interactive whiteboard isn't humanity changing. I think AI is. But I think you could skip it and not skip it forever. But I think you could probably just skip it now. And then when we Alex and Tom have decided, or whoever, it's really good, then you just come in at the end. I think you could skip it and come to it later. I think it'd be absolutely fine.
Yeah. Whilst everyone's still figuring it out. And getting like the hiccups out of the system, it's like, just stand by and wait. And once it's all smoothed over and everyone can go, look, this is how we're gonna move forward with it, then you can jump on the bandwagon. But at the moment, it's like there's still a lot of figuring out, isn't it?
There's a lot of figuring out. It's not. Having said that, I wouldn't say that's the gold standard of skipping it and then coming in at the end. No. I think what the problem with that is that you didn't get to say what you wanted.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be forced. Something's going to be forced upon you that is sort of it's all right, but I didn't really want that. So I think it's not the gold standard, but I think you could probably just wait.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with that. So I'm going to shift tact a little bit now. Obviously, we spoke a few times, and we talk about being creatives. And you are a music man, aren't you? And I'm curious to know, in terms of this AI conversation, then, like, what are your thoughts and feelings in regarding, music now and the ability to use AI and these different things to create songs and clone voices? What's that doing to your passion?
What's listening to AI-based music doing to my passion for music? Is that what I heard? One of the questions is that. Sorry,
I have this habit of just sort of rolling into multiple questions.
Well, I'm going to pick it apart. Try to pick it apart.
Please do.
Well, let's get specific. The new Beatles song.
I've not come across this yet.
Have you not? You need to go, because it's got a lot of AI in it. Okay. And what you can do, one of the things you can do with you can record your voice singing, and then you can put the intonation and the accent and the tone of John Lennon on your voice.
Ooh.
And it changes it and morphs it. While I don't find it offensive, the new Beatles song, there's something, and this is quite important actually, knowing that AI was involved. Does that fill me with inspiration and joy? And I'm not completely convinced. I like listening to it. It makes me feel calm, that song. It's a very, very chilled song. And it would probably be great over the back of a film. In fact, it's been in a film that I watched recently. I can't remember what it was. Yeah. But actually, does it fill you with joy? And I think actually that's how I feel about reading an article I know that's been written by AI. It's like, if I know, it's like, do I actually want to get to the end of this article? Do you know what I mean? And I'm not. That's how. I don't know how you feel, but I think if you know something's been written by AI, I think you're sort of slightly less inclined to find joy in it, or want to find joy in it. And some people feel differently about that. So I wrote a bit of advertorial for a local thing. It had to be out. They sent a thing saying, "Oh, you know, in the next 10 minutes, if you get this to us, you can have it basically for free." An entire page and quite a full-on magazine. Anyway, so I went, all right, I haven't got time. What do I do? ChatGPT, boom, and out spieled this advertorial. And it was advertorial, so it wasn't like a thought piece. It wasn't authentic piece. It was just explaining what Cottesmore was doing with something. I can't remember what it was. Perhaps AI. And I had some feedback, and everybody said, "Yeah, you used AI to write that," because every paragraph came back identical lengths. The word count in each paragraph was something like 81 in every single paragraph, and it was all identical. It was all a bit weird, and it had this AI feel. And I assume they're going to sort of get rid of this AI feel at some point. They're going to program it so that you don't get this AI feel. But what is it? It's a sort of homogeneity you get from the product. And that's the same for images. It's the same for this music. The idea of using AI for music, definitely the same with writing, and it definitely is with scripts, because all this hoo-ha that's been going on in Hollywood.
Yeah,
that AI is writing scripts. I feel, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel I can sense a script has been written. And we went to the cinema, and I thought, guys, this has been written by AI, because it was all of the films that had gone before. I cannot remember what film it was. All the films that had gone before wrapped up in one, and then there it was. And it was with a few names changed. I just thought, is there any excitement? Is there any authenticity? Is there any something novelty? And that's essentially what it lacks. I think that's the crux. If you want the answer to the very sort of various questions you asked at the beginning, what does it lack? What does AI content lack? And I think it lacks elements of novelty, linguistic novelty, so within the functioning and the tone and the structure of the language, to linguistical ideas. So when I write on LinkedIn, I write one moment, it's almost sort of faux, sort of formal, sort of in amusement, and then you use some sort of Americanism, and then you use a bit of a colloquialism, and then and this is it, novelty. That's novel. It's not that novel. Lots of other people do it, but it's an AI program, an LLM wouldn't think of perhaps doing that unless you program it to. So I think the little bits of inspiration and novelty that you get from being a human, I don't think you get that, and you get a sort of homogeneity about it. Having said that, I love using it. We both appreciate people's content. I think you can tell an AI image being created, and they're all starting to look really, you can tell, and it's of a genre, so that's it's it's itself. It's a bit like that Budweiser advert, that like pre-Sorrow, 300 days ago, where there was do you remember the Budweiser and then the fire from the barbecue, and then it all ended up quite crazy, and fire coming through, and I don't know. That's of a genre, that's of an era. And we're going to look back on that video, and we're going to feel warmly towards it, because it's such a nonsense, and it's such a crazy melange of fever dream-esque sort of sales that I think that's going to be of an era. But I think that's what that's what possibly it's being the novelty and the excitement is being knocked out of creativity.
It's there's a real challenge to it, isn't there? Because the LinkedIn side that you say, I've had that, and I think someone posted the day about using AI to write on LinkedIn and posts, and sometimes you do and sometimes you don't, and I use it sometimes to summarize and take information from. But it's also then, if you're regarded or known for being someone that uses AI or advocates for AI, everyone just expects you then to have written with it, or that whatever you write has been done using it. And so you're always, the authenticity and value of your content and is always under, not necessarily threat, but it's always under, it's scrupulous. It's people are always criticizing. People are always curious. It's like, did you do this? Or is it, is someone else? Has AI done this for you?
That's why I write in the way that I write, which is really personal and really idiosyncratic. And I think everybody needs to do that.
And that's why I just make videos. Like you can't, like you can say now, yeah, you can clearly tell with, if you make enough videos, you can clearly tell if it's a Hey Gen generated one and someone who's normal versus, you can tell the difference in sound. You can tell all sorts of mannerisms, everything else like that at the moment. So, and
that's it. I mean, Darren Coxon is he doesn't need to put it through a detection unit because or the detection app, because he can just tell from sniffing it from half a mile away.
Yeah, exactly. If you use it frequently like we do, you can always tell because there's 5 or 6 words that the AIs just love. Moreover, and words like that. And my English is terrible. And it's like people are going, look, you're using semicolons in the right place, and I'm like, what? I wouldn't. If you ask me, I have no idea. And so to have those things, it's like it's great. It does improve the quality of therefore language, and for some people who do struggle, fantastic. But it's that transparency of going, look, guys, I use it. This helps me, but it puts my message across, and it helps me do this, and blah blah blah. It's like that. It's when someone tries to pass it off as not, this is me, this is all me, and it's like, no, come on, just be honest. It's like, no, honestly, it's like, no, just be transparent with it. So,
I think that's really valid, really, really valid. And I think a takeaway from this would be very, very much that. And things that are pretending to be something they're not, people feel hugely sensitive towards. And that was the AI Principal Head Teacher project. Was a case in point. And anthropomorphization of tech is the ultimate manifestation of that. It was, we created a thing, we gave it an avatar, and we animated the mouth. And that only existed for about 2 weeks before it was sort of, we iterated it differently. But it was something that it wasn't, because what it is a digital algorithm. It's not a person, but it was masquerading, or it was masquerading as a person. I think humans feel that very, very, on a very visceral, very deep level. So I think you're absolutely spot on. Being authentic and telling people when you've used it is a really good thing, unless definitely. It's super obvious, in which case maybe you don't have to.
Yeah, exactly. If it's that bad, you definitely don't have to. It's fine. I want to wrap this up, Tom. I'm kind of gotten to this point now where I ask people this question, and I want to see what you think of it. What's the one thing that I should have asked you? What's the one question that I should have asked you that I haven't? What's the one thing that you should have asked me that you haven't? You should have asked me that. You should tell me that before the podcast, and I would have had some incredible, academic and intellectual answer. But then I would have known. I probably would have asked you. What's your favorite flavor of Walker's crisps? No, what? No, that's not. I didn't really like. I'm not really into Walker's crisps. What should you ask me that you haven't? What's your next event? That's a very good question. So tell us then, you've had these great successes, obviously, with the festivals and the days that came beforehand. What are your plans to follow up on that then and sustain that momentum of interest? So I think having the children at Cottesmore knowledgeable about the AI is very important. I think these projects with Alex Fay at Interactive Tutor and TAISK, TAISK, and maintaining these projects is really important. But I think the next important thing is the parents. I think, or not the next most important thing, but the next thing that we're focusing on. So we're going to put on an AI show, an AI event for parents, and parents can join us, and we can do some stuff. We can be creative together and introduce it, and we can have a good old chit chat and conversation, because at Cottesmore it's mainly about the conversation rather than the draconian use of AI. It's about the conversation. And so you can imagine the parent body is very dynamic and very vibrant, and it'll be an amazing show, and people can join us. It could be parents from other schools, or parents from abroad, or parents from, it's got to be parent. I think it should be parents. There should be the focus. Come together and talk about this thing. Talk about, the joys and the fears and oh my word, what's this all about? And if you've never heard of it and don't know anything about it, you'll learn something about it. Or if you're really quite far down the track, we've got people who are UN advisors on AI.
who are parents at Cottesmore. And so they're going to be very high level, but they might not have thought of something that somebody who doesn't know anything about it thinks about it. So I think that's the next thing, the parental show, the parental conference on AI. That's our next piece. It was going to be maths, but it turns out that maths is quite tricky with AI.
Yeah. I've come across that as a large language model. I've tried it a few times, been told a few times that it struggles a bit with that. So when are you hoping? Obviously in the future, when would you be hoping to put this event on for parents?
So I am going to choose the date. I'd really like to do it very soon. So if it's not this term, it's next term. So that's, I'll chuck you the date and hopefully you can tell your listeners when it's going to be, but it's soon, very soon, because it's another no-brainer. The maths one never took off. AI and SEN, boom, massive. AI Festival Masterclass, boom, massive. Conference, huge. And then AI and maths, it kind of went, it was too specific, it's too pinpoint. But we're back again with AI and parents. I mean, that's big. That's big stuff, isn't it? I mean,
I mean, definitely. I mean, back into my, I obviously coach rugby away from school, and I coach the under-13s, and speaking to parents and friends who are involved in that, and talk a lot about it, especially with exams coming up and all these different things. And you start mentioning, you name drop like, have you been like, no, they don't know anything about it, and it's like, our school's done this, or our school's done a little bit, but it'd be really good if. And I was thinking the same thing. A webinar or something for parents, or to help them, especially with exam season and what they could do for 11s and 13s, or just general understanding of how you can support your children doing homework or learning. And I think it'll be a valuable event.
Please do, if you feel like it, join me, and get the parents to join the Cottesmore one. It's going to be great.
Most definitely, Tom. Most definitely. That's a great way to wrap up. I'm glad you dived into that thought of what I should have asked you, because we've ended on a really, really valuable note that's I think will be hugely valuable and rewarding to the parents that come into it. And just a massive thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and speak to us and share your experiences and leadership journey through this, what is a really interesting time with AI and technology. And like you say, this marrying of tradition and innovation moving forward. It's super insightful and really, really appreciative of hearing your stories and what you're doing. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure.